So hello everybody, welcome back to this afternoon session. I hope you've all had a good lunch. So in our next session, we're going to be talking about digital transformation and how it's happening in every sector. But the private sector particularly has made huge investment to deliver innovative solutions in the interests of minimising costs. In the public sector, we have to balance that. We have significantly more processes than a typical private sector business would have, and also we have to juggle political priorities. And digital for us is about providing better services for citizens, not just alternative ones and not just cutting cost. It's important that when a customer contacts us, using whichever method of communication they choose, that we have the system and processes to efficiently enable us to deliver that service as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And so in our next conference session, we'll be taking a look at how Rotherham have approached their digital transformation journey. I'm very pleased to welcome Luke Sayers, who's the Director of Customer Information and Digital Services, and Helen Barker, who's the Head of Customer Services, both for Rotherham Metropolitan Borough Council. So can I invite you to the stage?
Afternoon, everybody. So obviously I'm Luke, not Helen. Helen's going to talk you through the journey that we've been on, but I just wanted to start off just by giving you a little background on the history of Rotherham. Some of it you might know, so apologies. Rotherham's been through quite a turbulent time, I think it's fair to say. So in August 2014, the J report came out, which exposed widespread issues with children's services around child sexual exploitation. And obviously that was headlines, and I'm sure all of you are aware about that. That was followed up by a second report, the Casey report, in January 2015. And that report went even further and uncovered all sorts of issues within the council, bullying, sexism, a whole range of issues and weaknesses in the way that the council was operating. So following that report, February the following month, 2015, the council went into intervention, and the whole council was taken over by commissioners. So at that point, there was a new layer, if you like, on top of members and officers in terms of the decision making and how the council would be run. And that obviously, we're all aware, when you're running a council, we all have layers of bureaucracy. We had a new layer on top of that, rightly so, but that made things very difficult. So that started in February 2015, and the commissioners didn't fully leave until September 2018. So during that period, they slowly released parts of the council that made various standards back to the council, but it wasn't until September 2018 that we had full control back in the normal way a council would run. So just moving on, customer services didn't really progress during that time. It was very disjointed. We had customer services operating different standards out of different departments and areas of the council. Real mismatch, no understanding of what was going on in each department. So we also, I joined the council to find that we never seemed to actually engage with any real customers. We didn't bother to speak to them because as a council we knew best and we would know how to deliver services to customers. So another real area of concern. Moving forward, we wanted to understand our customers and what they needed from us, but we wanted to understand them, and I put down here single view of a customer, and I don't mean that we know absolutely everything about our customer, because there are some services that really are quite disjointed, and rightly so, in a council. So an example, if someone was phoning about social care, do you really care whether they've got a library book out or not? It's not really relevant. But where is the benefit of having a single view? Where should we make that joining up of those systems? And then lastly, my role. So I joined the council in October 2016, and in my job title was customer services. And I was asked at the interview, what is customer services? And I thought it was the usual interview question. But the reason they were asking it is because they didn't know what customer services was. My job description, the customer services bit was blank. and they wanted me to fill it in and decide what customer services would look like. So very attractive to me, so blank piece of paper. And so then we've gone on the journey since October 2016, which Helen's going to come up now and talk about. One of my first things in role was to actually get that role in place, which is Head of Customer Services. Helen kindly accepted the challenge, and she'll talk you through what we've done since then to try to take us forward.
Okay, afternoon everybody. So I didn't run, I did take the challenge, and I don't regret it, which is a good thing. And hopefully what I want to tell you today is share some of the approach we took, some of the foundations of the things that I think have helped us get to where we are now. Probably our story isn't different to many other people. There'll be things we might have done slightly different, but hopefully you'll recognise some of the challenges we have. And we look forward to sharing that story with you. So I think one of the things that, having come through the commissioners being part of our business and having to go through a very, very tough time of governance, of basically reviewing every single thing, quite rightly, we needed to start from a very firm foundation. And one of the things that's really tempting sometimes is that everybody goes along to events like this, you see technology and you get really excited and you want to go and buy something. But the important thing is that we knew as a council, having learned from things that had happened in the past, that we needed to take a very careful and considered approach and make sure that we had the whole infrastructure behind that change programme. So we created a customer digital programme. It's just a series of words. What that actually meant is creating a Customer Service and Efficiency Board, which attendees, assistant directors and upwards, signed off a strategy to take the council forward so that everybody was very clear on what we were trying to achieve. One of the first things, and Luke mentioned about the fact that we hadn't really spoken much to our customers, so we're very good, I think, sometimes in local government about prescribing services and the way we do things, not always taking the time to ask people what they really want. We had a customer access strategy that was 2011. It was about 50 pages long. It had more statistics in than I've ever seen. Not very attractive or really anything about a customer at all. Threw that out and created a 10-page document which is very much about saying this is what we want to help our customers achieve. These are the outcomes. This is where we need your help, customers. This is about us saying, regardless of who you are, what your circumstances are, first and foremost, every person, every customer needs to be able to access the service they need. What we really need your help with, though, is that if you are able to do that digitally, by completing things online, that means we can focus on people that aren't able to do that. We didn't take a digital by default approach. It was very much about driving digital forward through engagement and inclusion. This particular element is really important, and I've just talked a lot about setting our stall out. So just to give you a glimpse of that, I'm not sure if you'll see it from this distance, but there's nothing on there that any one of you couldn't have come up with. But these are the core things to us as a business that were important. I'm not going to read them all out, but you get the drift. This is about customer contact being owned by customer service, and that was a key principle for us because we have a lot of services that believe they know what's right for the customer, but they have specialisms of their own. We are, in customer services, specialists in our own right, and that's not always recognised. But our job is to protect the interests of the customer and represent them when we're looking at redesigning services and involving them to get their feedback and ensure that that is woven into our future designs. Some of the other things on there, quite obvious stuff really, getting things right first time. We had people telling the story over and over again. Listening and acting on feedback. We didn't necessarily have a good track record of taking information from customers and using it and then telling people that's what we'd actually done. Key principles along a similar line, that's taking those themes and saying, okay, so we now know what we're trying to deliver. How are we going to make sure this happens? And one of the key things there is that we couldn't afford at this stage of our journey for people just to pay lip service to this whole model. We needed people who would live and breathe the principles that we'd put together and actually act as our advocates across the business. So I have to say, we talk a lot about customer engagement, and we often see that very much as external facing, but we had a huge job to do with our own internal members of staff who, when we talked to them about things like, what does digital mean to you? They'd say, well, I'm digital. I tell everybody to go on the website. Get to the website. The service that they perhaps are responsible for has got a web form, so that's a tick in the box to start with, but you open up the form and really it's just a huge free-form text box. But that was to them being digital, so we knew we had a lot of work to do. We talk a lot about technology, and I think some of the speaker this morning said that it is really easy to go down a route of the technology dictating your journey and influencing the way you build services when it should be the other way around. So first and foremost, we said already about it being about the customer, but we also recognised that we needed to have a bit of catching up. So over those previous challenging years, we had dropped a little bit behind compared to other authorities, and we needed to put the key building blocks in to be able to start our journey off on the right footing. So we've been customers of Jardoo for a number of years, and the time was right for us at this point to think we've got a website that was not the worst, but not the best in terms of engagement. You'll see a bit of that later on. We wanted to have a redesigned website that did two things, really. It recognised the journey we'd already taken and that we'd listen to our customers to try and develop something that would be used by them, for them. And the customer experience management bit, that was to go alongside with that. So again, we had got web forms, but we had no way of looking at how customers behaved, what those services delivered. Customers couldn't track any information. We had no case management at all. And equally important, one of the elements of the customer service model is that we are wanting customers to have ease of access regardless of the channel they choose. So if somebody does need to contact the council by telephone, and it's the first time they've done that, they don't have a nominated officer to deal with their inquiry, we need a really simple way for them to come in. And we recognise our telephony has not been, well, over years has sort of, I suppose, got to the point where it couldn't fulfil what we needed in terms of flexibility. So we also engaged on a new contract with 8x8 last year. Just sort of giving you a bit of information about our delivery approach here. Again, no surprises to anybody. We put together a service redesign approach. One of the key things, I think I was at a session earlier where we were talking about how to capture financial savings and customer improvements. Because, again, of our background, we've been very rigorous in terms of our governance. So when anybody identified a quick win, we put everybody through the same process. What is the quick win? How are you delivering that now? How will you be delivering that afterwards? What benefits and savings does that deliver? Thank you very much. Give us your cost code. That money's coming out of your budget. It is literally as simple as that. Although I have to say, it isn't simple sometimes in terms of the time you spend, but the methodology was really easy for us to implement and has the buy-in of our strategic leadership team. I've mentioned that quite a few times, I won't sort of overkill that, but for us that was important for two reasons, partly because of the history, but also because we needed to know how well we were moving along our journey. We needed to recognise the successes along the way. There was a period of time with the challenges that when we had the commissioners in where everything was about child sexual exploitation, quite rightly, but we had everything in the news was very much around that same subject. We had no opportunity over those years, really, or it wasn't the right time to be even celebrating the minor changes that we'd achieved. We wanted to change that, but doing it in a very careful and considered way. So moving on to website redesign and our customer experience management, which I particularly want to focus on. We had a refreshed website commissioned through Jardoo, huge help and support. And I have to tell you a bit about the journey with that because it sounds really simple, but When we first, we involved our service directorates, the leader, chief exec. We mocked up 3 designs with the help of Jadu. We didn't want to have colours by committee. We literally came up with 3 slightly different versions and said, that's your choice, which one do you think? And this was very much a subjective view. We knew that, because at this stage we weren't planning on sending it out to everybody in Rotherham for them to tell us. We needed to this was about colours and about style and about the focus on transactions. So we did that. The big job, which I don't think, if anybody's been through this process, I'm sure you'll all know, it's easy to underestimate the time and the dedication we needed to spend on redesign the pages. We'd got 50,000 plus URLs on our website, thousands and thousands of pages of news stories, over years of different changes. Nobody in services even knew who owned that content. In fact, when we spoke to our Customer Service Efficiency Board, got some volunteers from services to work with. We did the best we could to sort of break it down into core service areas and shared lists of content. And people in services didn't even know that content was theirs. That's how staggering it was. So part of this process, services actually learned a lot about their own directorates, which was a benefit. But it did take a lot of time, and we would have never been able to redesign every page before we went live. So what we did instead is we did focus on the top 100 pages. So we'd looked at our user stats, and we knew what people had historically been searching for, where their key interests were, and we used that as the focus. We very much wanted to drive and give much more dedication to transactions on our homepage. We also wanted to finally, I suppose, promote Rotherham as a place. We wanted to use this website to mark the change and the improvement for our residents, for all our customers, for all the things that happened in the past. We wanted to mark a completely new start and show that we have learned from what's happened before, and we're there to deliver services for people in the way that they tell us they want us to deliver them. So just a bit of a comparison there. So the one on the left with the wonderful purple 70s colour, which I think lots of authorities have had, was our previous website. It's difficult to tell really on that screenshot, but it was very news heavy. Everything at the top was news, transactional stuff much more further down at the bottom. This is the new one, so we've got the wonderful Minster. Please come to Rotherham and see the Minster, it's spectacular. I'll just get that plug in there. And as you can see, we've devoted that top level to popular tasks, which do change. An interesting thing with popular tasks, I'd like to say we were brave and that we were letting our customer statistics drive those popular tasks, but we aren't any different to probably most of you. We do put some on there that we perhaps wouldn't necessarily choose, but which does suit our strategic objectives, so I have to be honest about that. We had a bit of a debate about whether we should list council services, because not everybody would know which council service does what, but we also knew from our previous stats that people were searching using those titles, so we gave people basically a choice. But the interesting thing is that we only have 2 tiles with Rotherham News at the bottom and 2 tiles with events on. Obviously lots of information behind, but despite a bit of challenge from our leader and from comms, we did get agreement that would take lower priority. We know that the news features aren't something that most residents will regularly decide to browse and read, and we can use social media to push those messages out if there is a need to. Mention that one. Another dilemma, we could have spent several years having 2 websites running alongside and having a sort of beta testing approach. We chose to have a redesigned website and then redirect people back to an archive site. That came with its challenges as well, because what we found is that when redirecting people back to the archive site until we'd moved everything over, they were actually staying on the archive site and then carrying on looking at everything else that was there. So we've been trying to strip content out as we move along. And by the end of this month, the archive site will be down to 1 single page, and the only reason we're keeping that 1 page for a little bit longer is because we have a wonderfully popular widget, which is about finding your bin collection date, and thousands of people are still using it, and we need to find a way to build something similar on our new site. So that's where we are there. We had a Your account previously, but we actually successfully promoted that really well and had 20,000 people signed up to that. But we did sell it, this is probably going back 3 or 4 years ago, we sold it as being an area where people could have access to a whole range of services. We never delivered on that for lots of reasons. A lot of that was around integration. So we've started again with the support of Jardu. We've created a new Your account, and our plans going ahead are for that to be the one place that customers go where they can access any service that they've already requested, or they can raise new enquiries as well. At the moment, we've integrated with Northgate for our revenues and benefits service, so people look at the council tax, they can look at any submitted benefits assessments as well, and any other case that they have created. So when they fill in a form for something like a pothole enquiry, that can all be tracked back through Your account. And we've got nearly 11,000 people signed up for that now since October. We're pushing that now through annual billing, so I expect those numbers to go up. We had an old search, a Google Mini, if anybody remembers Google Mini searches, that was our previous search. We bought a new search with Cluedo, and I'm pleased to say that we're now up to 96% success rate with our internal search. And we're learning every day with things. February, the one phrase that was searched on our website that there was no content, but we had people searching for it, was coronavirus. Whereas this month, we've actually got a page redirecting to public health, but as at Wednesday, we had 900 hits on one day through that link. So a bit scary for all of us, I know, but the search is telling us that information. We had another very popular search, bus pass. Our council has no responsibility for bus passes, but people clearly think we do. So that was about creating a page that literally redirects to South Yorkshire Transport. So we are learning as we're going along and trying to use that customer intelligence to build and design our services. So what have we done post go live? Feels like years ago this now, because there's still been a lot to do. Mentioned about focusing on the top 100 pages, but obviously life doesn't stop there. This is just a glimpse of what the team have had to do. I think documents is a key thing. We had nearly 700 documents, very old documents, 100 pages. Luke's mentioned a couple of the reports. We adopted the gov.uk model in terms of accessibility, and where we could, we've made our PDFs accessible, but anything before September 18, if it's on the website, there is a line there that says, we know this isn't accessible, but if you're having problems accessing it, get in touch and we will help you, which is that we've taken exactly the same lines and wording that is on gov.uk and reflected in our accessibility statement. Forms, hundreds of forms, like I said before, with lots of free-form text. We'd even got one, and if you ever go into Rotherham and were wondering why there was a shortage of hairdressers for some time, that's because there was a form online for a hairdressing licence, free-form text. You had to print it off and write it out and send it back to an address that we haven't occupied for years and years. So if there was a shortage of hairdressers, that is probably why. There was a period of time, again, some of this goes back to the way we used to build websites. We had huge download areas. We've had to spend a lot of time focusing on those. Where we talk about bespoke home pages, this is where it would look like a landing page, but there's something a little bit more that's needed on there. So it might need a widget, it might need some more interaction on there. So we've spent a lot of time creating those as well. This, for me, is such a huge achievement, and the team, I have to say, we were quite surprised and shocked and pleased all in one breath. But bearing in mind the previous years, we didn't even meet the basic assessment, so we never even got through to the next round of being assessed. So we were 400 plus in the ranking in terms of local authorities. So that for us is an incredible achievement. The journey doesn't stop there. You know, of course, we'd love to be one, but we've got to keep focusing on driving the accessibility message across all our services and teams. Had some great support from Jadu to do that. Lots of reference sites. A wonderful lady at Harrogate. If anybody's looking to learn how to build accessible websites, definitely worth getting in touch. Mentioned that one. Just to give you a bit of a glimpse of the before and after. So we're already surpassing the 2018-19 website visits. And obviously, that sounds great, but it's no good if people are visiting and not finding the things they need. So this is where the last sort of, I suppose, the bit for us is the next stage of a journey is understanding what customers are doing when they're on our site and whether or not they are indeed completing those transactions. So that stat at the bottom about web forms completed, 56,000 since we went live. Our most popular consistently is our sign up for garden waste service. And 80% of people are subscribing online, which again is a huge achievement. If anybody's curious about the number in brackets, 46,661, 83% self-serve. The reason for that, right at the very beginning, Luke mentioned that we were really keen that regardless of how somebody accesses our service, we really don't care how they get to us. It's the same single process. So if you ring us or you come in face-to-face, the staff will use exactly the same digital form as is online. So that the self-serve in the case of web forms has been 83%. The remainder have been completed by our customer services staff using that same process. Mentioned the search already. So next steps. I'll just quickly get these all on screen. One of the key challenges for us, I think, is to now take stock of our existing back office systems. We have a huge efficiency program, so where we focus so much on customer improvement, but out of that also comes opportunities to save. So part of our customer digital program is to save in the region of about £2.5 million. Last year, well, as of now, starting from last financial year, we've got up to about 570,000. So we've still got some way to go, but we've sown a lot of the sort of grassroots really to move on from that. But what we now need to do is look at our IT estate and start to look for opportunities to integrate with systems as low cost. And the reason I say that is because we chose Jadu because one of the things they have is the integration hub, and if they've already integrated with another authority, we can actually pretty much pick that off the shelf, tweak it a little bit for ourselves, but that integration cost that somebody has previously invested on is not passed on to us. So that's a real benefit for us. Mention the single process. CXM strategies are a really key point, and I think if we're talking about lessons learned, we should have spent more time on that at the beginning. So excited, getting the new out-of-the-box kit. We needed to spend a little bit more time thinking about roles of staff, permissions, and grouping customers together. So, for example, elected members in groups and residents in groups, community groups. We needed to do more of that. Can't underestimate the need for continuous customer engagement. I'll just quickly, I know I'm conscious of time. We've spent a lot of time working with customers, bringing volunteer testers in, devoting time to go out and meet with community groups, finding out from them what they think, what they want to do, what they'd like us to do in the future. Without their help, some of our services would have been designed in the wrong way. We wouldn't have got them engaged. Garden waste is a good example. We sat with people like Age UK and said, does this work? Does it make sense? Is the language we're using right? Does it work as you'd expect it to work? How easy was it? And we'll continue doing that. That's a really key part of our approach. I'll just mention briefly Galaxy sites. Again, probably a historic thing for local government, particularly in Rotherham, going through the times of the commissioners. Services wanted to almost distance themselves from the corporate image. So we had a proliferation of Galaxy sites sprouting up in lots of different formats, lots of different branding. Our job now is to start bringing some of those back in. There is no reason that most of them cannot reside on our Rotherham.gov.uk website. So hearts and minds and contracts, we've got all that to unpick yet. We've got about 40 odd at the moment, so we need to plan that over the next sort of 12 to 24 months. mentioned your account. And lastly, I'll just end on that. I think we're now at a point where we've got a wealth of information. We need to use it properly. We need to also, where we can, be transparent with that information and share that with our residents so they can see how we're performing. So we're working with our corporate performance team to look at the best ways to use that data, and ultimately we'd like our service areas and customers to be able to search and find information in the easiest way they can. So if they want to see how we are performing in delivering services, they'll be able to do that. Okay. Don't know if there's any time for that, by the way. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.